Are Theresa May and her government covering up allegations of sexual harassment by cabinet ministers and MPs? That is the question we need an urgent answer to. In this week's Sunday Times, there's an article by Tim Shipman. The headline simply reads, "Theresa May allows serial sex pests to serve in her cabinet." Now, what sources in Number 10 have revealed is that Theresa May receives regular briefings, which are called the ins and outs briefings, which include allegations of sexual harassment by members of her own party, including those who serve in her cabinet. Doesn't it sound like a cover-up to you? Theresa May receiving regular briefings, apparently, according to this article, knows of cases of sexual harassment, and, if this is true, has failed to act on them, allowing people who could pose a threat to women and men alike to continue their behaviour unchecked, with no action taken on these allegations at all. Now, this comes, of course, this weekend after Michael Gove, a cabinet minister, made a horrendous joke about Harvey Weinstein, who, let's not forget, is allegedly responsible for a catalogue of sexual harassment, sexual assault and rape.
Sometimes I think that coming into the studio with you, John, is a bit like going into Harvey Weinstein's bedroom. You just pray that you emerge with your dignity intact.
We know how difficult it is for people who are survivors of sexual harassment, abuse, assault and rape to come forward. We know in this country, for example, about 1.4 million women every year face domestic violence, about 400,000 women are sexually assaulted, about 90,000 women are raped, and that doesn't include a vast scale of sexual harassment every single day, the extent to which we can't possibly even know. And the vast majority of cases, there is no justice. Men just get away with it. And part of the problem is if you treat it as a joke, if it's belittled, particularly by people in power, that deters people who have already suffered often very traumatic experiences from coming forward, because they don't think they'll be believed and they don't think it'll be taken seriously. It gets even worse. The 1922 committee, that's the powerful body representing Conservative backbenchers, apparently they mobilised against an attempt, according to the Evening Standard, by David Cameron to get a binding code of conduct in place, which would have included a right of parliamentary staff, of members, to seek arbitration, including, of course, in cases of sexual harassment. The reason David Cameron actually tried to get this introduced was in the aftermath of a sex scandal. Why did the 1922 committee of Tory MPs mobilise against that, and has that allowed sexual harassment to continue unchecked, with MPs, researchers, their staff, their advisors unable to get redress and help and support? Now, a spreadsheet's just been released, it's being circulated amongst Tory researchers and advisors and others, which details behaviour by Tory MPs, including sexual harassment. Now, we don't know, of course, the names of these people yet, and it does depend on people feeling able to come forward. But Robert Peston, the ITV political editor, says the growing fear among Tory MPs is that the sexual harassment scandal is evolving into the equivalent of the MP's expenses debacle, and that could bring down the government. Now, is it the case that there's been a failure to act on these cases of sexual harassment on the basis that the Tories fear it could bring down their government? So they're shielding people because they fear the political damage would be so calamitous that it would end this government. Now, spokesperson for Theresa May says they can't say whether Theresa May knows about all the cases of sexual harassment, or even whether she's asked the whips for information. Now, that's a question we need an answer to. Does the Prime Minister, does the most powerful person in the country, nominally at least, the person who is in charge of her cabinet, who is ultimately responsible for MPs, does she or does she not know about whether or not her colleagues, the people she's responsible for, have committed these sorts of acts? And has she acted on that information, or has she failed to do so? Now, ultimately, there's a systemic problem of men who have this sense of entitlement, of privilege, if you like, and men in positions of power using or exploiting that power, thinking to themselves it's their word against mine, that it'll damage their career if they speak out, that, you know, they somehow have some right to treat people in this way. That is a systemic problem, but that of course doesn't let the individuals off the hook. The individuals are responsible for their own behaviour, but we need action. And of course we need to know whether this is happening not just in the Tory party. We need to know about cases of sexual harassment within the Labour Party, the Lib Dems, any party of course represented in Parliament. If we don't get answers to these questions, then the danger is that women and men alike will continue to be sexually harassed or worse. And that simply can't be allowed to happen, because if the political elite can get away with this, then it will help ensure that this culture, this systemic problem, will continue not just here, but across the country as well. And if any good comes out of the Harvey Weinstein scandal and what it's unleashed, then it must be now an uprising against a systemic problem which allows men to act like this with impunity and know they can get away with it. I want to hear your thoughts about this. How do we take on this culture, this systemic problem? How do we ensure that men responsible for this are held not just to account, but also there is justice for those they have assaulted, or indeed in many wider cases we know, in Hollywood and elsewhere, sexually assaulted, abused and or indeed raped. We need to take this on. There's at least now recognition that this is a big, big, big problem, a crisis indeed. So leave your comments as ever. We've got loads of videos, click up there to look at them. And as ever, spread the word, subscribe. I'll see you next time.